Hey y'all, I'm going to show you, I'm going to let you watch me as I'm putting on this binding, okay? I use my long arm when I put it on. I use the Creative Studio is the software for a gamel, and hand-guided 11, stitch 11 is what I use. Okay, this customer made her own binding. And this is 2.5 inch. If you follow me, you know that I like 2.75, but this is 2.5. Wait a minute, it might be 2. It might be bigger than that. Hang on, let me check it. It might be the right size. I don't know. No, this is straight up 2.5 inch. So I like to know that because then it'll tell. That way I'll know how deep of a seam to take. A seam allowance is what I'm talking about. Okay, so I always start on this side. I'm right-handed, and I check to make sure at least these bottom 2 corners, I want to make sure that they don't have a seam connection right here on the corner, because it's very difficult to stitch those down. I can't control what happens at the top of this quilt, but I can control these 2 corners. All right, so here's how it's done. I literally hold just a little bit of tension on this as I'm stitching this down. I hold just a tiny bit of tension. Otherwise, you're going to have a wave. Your binding will be wavy at the end. So they tell me. It's never happened to me because I always hold a little bit of tension on it. But that's the excuse other long armers give for not putting it on with their long arm. Is they say that it causes waves or something. I don't know. I've gotten pretty good at putting it on. I've gotten pretty fast at putting it on. Right? So I'm holding tension with this hand, and I'm driving, at least this bottom section, I drive like this, because if I drive with the handlebar, see what happens? It kind of wants to bounce a little bit. Oh, it's not too bad tonight. Okay. So the whole idea is just to get it on there so that your customer can get on with this quilt. See, there it goes with the bouncing. Do you see what I mean? Kind of feels like it's bouncing. So I hold it here. I get to my corner and I 45 off of that, make my 45 corner. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Let me see if I can move the tripod. There we go. I make my 45 at the corner, and not all borders are created equal, so you do the best you can with what you got. And I use my, I was just using that to make sure I had a nice level corner for my binding, okay? And now I'm going up this side, all the way up to the pickup bar. Again, I am holding tension on here, and I released that because it was pulling just a little bit on my quilt. Now, when you get to the pickup bar, sink your needle, get rid of your straps here, which is what I'm doing right now. Now watch as I go down to the other end of the table. I have to roll more quilt off of the pickup bar so that I can add binding to that section. You see the quilt moving? And so is the head of my machine. It's moving into position so that I can then add binding to this section of the quilt. All right, and you can still see me pretty decent. As I come up the sides, I have no choice but to put it on like this, best I can do, right? And the whole idea is to skip the binding on so the customer gets the quilt back. They're excited to do the handwork so that they can start another quilt, which means I get another project. This is just business. That's all it is, business. So if you're following me to learn these tricks, this is how we put binding on, just like this. And is it just as good as, you know, using your domestic machine? Well, I think so. It's done. That's the point. It's done. And, you know, quilts are heavy, and trying to wrestle that underneath your domestic isn't easy. You've got to deal with skip stitches. You got to deal with all these layers in your machine on your domestic, and your domestic doesn't like a lot of layers. We all know that. If domestic sewing machines could quilt, there wouldn't be any need for us. The Longarmers, I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and run this all the way through so you can see what happens on every corner. Okay. And again, sinking my needle, I'm going to show you the seam. It's kind of hard because right here is the seam. I've been doing it so long, I get pretty consistent on this right here. All right, I'm going to put this back down, and I'm going to see if getting you a little lower would help at all. All right. Y'all, all I do is stand all day long. I never sit down. Literally just stand. My daughter recently bought me some, I don't know, the compression socks for your legs, because I'm on a concrete floor. And I'm barefoot most of the time because I don't want to step on anybody's quilt. But anyway, the socks that she got me, boy, they really help. So my legs don't ache as much. All right. I got one more. I need just a little bit more off of the pickup bar, and I can get that. This is a pretty good sized quilt. It belongs to Debbie and Dennis Kaufman. They're from Harrisonburg. It's 78 by 98. That's how big it is. 78 by 98. But anyway, let me tell you about Debbie and Dennis. They are the sweetest couple I have ever met. They always, he always drives her to drop off the quilt. She wasn't there when I picked up this quilt, and I had a bunch of old quilt magazines and stuff. And, you know, because as a Longarmer, you get magazines and you look at them, and after you look at them, what do you do with them? Well, I pass them out to my customers, and it helps them stay inspired to keep wanting to do quilts, right? That's what it did for me always. So, anyway, Debbie wasn't there when Dennis dropped the quilt off, and I grabbed a big old handful, I don't know, 10 or 12 of the magazines, and I said, bring this to Debbie. I think she'll enjoy, you know, reading the articles and looking at the quilts and all of that. Anyway, she sent me a text today. Today is Saturday. I picked up on Thursday. And she said, I can't thank you enough for sending me these magazines. They have so inspired our next quilt. And they always talk like that, R&D. I mean, this hobby, I don't know how much sewing he does, but I'm beginning to think he's a big part of this. I don't know if he's, you know, the cutter, or if he does the pressing. I'm not sure, but they are the coolest couple. I mean, just, yeah. And that's what, I mean, quilters, oh my gosh, gosh, y'all, quilters have saved my life. I've had a rotten several years, but my business and my customers are, y'all, there's nothing more generous than a quilter. I got some stories, oh my, I could tell you, but we'll get to those. But this is about Dennis and Debbie. Boy. And they always buy the backing from me. They always buy their batting from me because they want to support my business. Isn't that sweet? Okay, rather than you be over there all by yourself, I'm going to move this so that you can now see what I'm doing. Having this tripod has really helped with my videos and my teaching and all of that. I have several people who follow me who are long armors, and they're getting into the business, and you know, there's a lot of tips and tricks that I teach the long armors. This video obviously is for long armors, but on my YouTube, there's also tutorials for sewing, for quilting. So if you're interested in that at all, go take a look at those. I have a couple for adding borders. Yeah. Connecting the ends of your binding, because I don't always do the binding for the customers. So if you're connecting the ends of your own, I always 45 my binding, making the binding. I've got some videos on how to make binding. So yeah, there's a lot of information on my YouTube. Where this video will actually land there as well. I won't post it on my Facebook or Instagram. I might post it on my TikTok because I have a lot of people who like the TikTok. I like the TikTok because it'll let me post longer videos. The Facebook feed comes from the Instagram. So anyway, so are you getting the gist of what I'm doing? And now if you look, I've come back, this is where I started, and this is where I am. So I'm gonna sew till about right here, and I'm gonna leave about that much space because that's where I'll connect the two ends using the domestic machine. Okay, now right here, I need to keep tension on this, but I also need to drive. So what I do is I hold it with my belly and bring it down, bring my stitch down very carefully until I get to about, that's about as far as I'm willing to go. Tie off, and that's all done. I'm done with this. Now obviously I've got a lot more left over, and I'll return this leftover to my customer, and 9 times out of 10, what I do, that's not a very good pair of scissors. What I do with these is I chop them up at about like 2 or 3 inches, and I use them for beginners and enders, jumper scraps on your, you know, when you're sewing. That way you don't have to clip threads ever. Another thing about threads, don't buy Moda right now. Moda shrivels like you ain't never seen. So stay away from Moda. All right, y'all, enough for tonight.